Well, we're here in Peyton, Colorado, and we're visiting Big Joe Waskom. And this is a continuation of our trip to go around and find the guys that served together, and we're actually putting together a unit history. And so, of course, Big Joe Waskom has a special place in my life because he happens to be the first guy that I actually met in Vietnam, and I'll never forget that meeting. It was amazing. And as I recall, Joe, when the three of us, the new recruits, came in, you guys had just come off of a pretty bad deal, and there wasn't very many of you left.
Yeah, we've been in a firefight, which that was normal. And we had nobody killed, but several wounded,
Yep.
and they were gone. And so we're just back at the base camp waiting for you.
Yeah. So, Joe, where were you born?
Oh, I'm a Hoosier boy at a little town, Odin, Indiana. I think we had like 1,700 people. Extremely small community. So,
What was that, farming, or what did they do there?
oh, all farming, all around was the town's in the middle, and there's nothing for miles and miles, but mainly corn and wheat farms.
Okay. And did you graduate from Odin High School? Did they have a high school?
We had a high school. I did graduate, barely, but yeah, I did. It was a very small, I think there were 33 people in my class. It was, again, small.
Yeah.
But
And do you remember, now, did you join the Army or were you drafted?
I was drafted. My brother joined the Marine Corps. I stayed home, kind of helped take care of my single mom and this and that. But then I get the greetings. Well, I registered for the draft, like a good boy, and then I get the greetings and started the procedure.
And like me, I was drafted as well. Then one day you got the real letter that said you're supposed to show up. And
I did, yeah, the
Yep.
greetings, and you've been selected. And
now, I'm curious, if your mom was a single mom and your brother had already joined, wasn't there a possibility that you could have put in for a waiver or something?
Actually, there was. I didn't know it at that time. My mother didn't know it at that time, and I probably would have went anyway.
Yeah.
And about halfway through my tour in Vietnam, that did come up.
Yeah.
And my mother had found out about it, talked to her congressman, and all of a sudden I'm out in the field and I'm told to get on the resupply chopper that, the commander wanted to see me, and they fly me back in. I got to go straight to the general's office and sit there. I'm going, what did I do? And I go in and he sets me down and he pulls out this letter thing, and it's from the congressman and my mother. And if you're the last two males of the family, you don't have to be in a combat zone.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Tom's already there. And so they told me if I chose to do so, they'd send me back to the States. And I go, well, let my brother go. I should have known because he wasn't in combat. And they go, well, we've already talked to him, and he doesn't want to go, and said the same thing. And I said, well, I'm not leaving either. I'm staying. My brother's here, my guys are here,
Yeah.
and I'll finish my tour. I think I had 6 months to go. And they made me sit down right there in front of him and write a letter to my mother explaining to her that I'd had the opportunity to go home and I'd turned it down, and they actually gave it to the clerk who mailed it, just so she knew. But yeah.
And do you remember what date did you go into the Army?
Oh yeah, I do. January 3rd, the day after my 20th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they let me stay home for my birthday.
68?
Yeah.
68. And where did you take basic training?
Oh, Fort Knox, Kentucky is where they sent me for basic training. I mean, we called it Little Korea. Buddy, let me tell you, January, Kentucky, it's cold. It's just so. Anyway, I had basic training there at Fort Knox, which is basically a tank outfit,
Right.
armored. But
At that time, did you have any idea what MOS you might have, or did they say, well, according by your test scores, you might be a good radio guy? Or I mean, was there anything like that in your mind at that time?
well, no, there was nothing at that time I really realized about. What I know later was all the physical training and everything, they were evaluating you for a possible MOS, and then it wasn't till 3 months later at the end of basic training I found out being in good physical shape and everything may not be the best thing in the world. And I got the 11 Bravo, which is infantry MOS. So,
Where did you take AIT?
Fort McClellan, Alabama. At least it was a little warmer there, but it was AIT, Advanced Individual Training, or in my case, and your Advanced Infantry Training.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
What was different about AIT than basic? Did they give you more privileges? Like, did you get 3-day passes or things like that?
well, we did get weekend passes as far as privileges. And basic training was just all basically physical evaluations.
Learning how to march.
Yeah, how to march, how to salute, and learning the code. Now, I'm at AIT, and they specialize in your MOS, which in our case, mine was infantry. So they're teaching you how to defend yourself, how to shoot different weapons and be accurate with them, and be honest, they're trying to teach you how to kill, which even then it doesn't sink in. But you're learning. I took it serious, and all the instructors were back from Vietnam. And, I remember them always telling you and yelling at some of them, you need to listen up, because this will save your life, because Charlie's going to kill you. If you don't learn what I'm teaching you, he's going to kill you. And it still doesn't sink in. I mean, I was serious through all this training. There was no laughing and joking, but you still don't grasp where you're going.
When I was in AIT, Joe, I remember one class that we went to, and it was all of our instructors were Vietnam vets.
Right.
And a lot of them were hurt, wounded. You could still see that they were limping, or they had, something wrong with them. And I'll never forget the day that the instructor got up there and he was begging us to listen, and he started crying.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't want one of you guys to have to go through what I went through. And I don't want any more that killed. I don't want any more of you guys getting killed. And that was the day when I saw a grown
emotions.
man cry.
Yeah.
And I thought, this guy is dead serious. And like you said, there wasn't a single, you could have dropped a pin. And I think for me, that was the day that I realized I was probably going to a very bad place.
Yeah, you just didn't realize how bad.
Yep.
Yeah, we had my instructors. They were serious.
Yep.
I mean, none of them broke down, but you could tell they were really serious about what they were trying to teach you. They were trying to save our lives.
Oh yeah,
and,
no question.
It was important to listen to. I listened, but again, you don't grasp.
Nothing like being there, is it?
No, it's.
Do you remember the date that you got into country?
Oh, I got into country. It would have been June 13th of '68. That's when I arrived at Tonsonoo.
Yep.
And,
Remember the bleachers?
the bleachers and all. And then they put you on guard duty on the walls, and that was a rude awakening too. I mean, you knew you're in another country, but I'm up there and a bus down on the road pulls up and stops. And everybody gets off, the men, the women, and it's just, the men are just, it was a bathroom break and there was no bathroom. I mean, the men are just doing their thing, and
Sure.
the women, and I'm going, country boy, I told you, it's Hoosier. I've never seen nothing like
Yeah.
this. I'm somewhere totally different. So,
Yep. The one thing that struck me too is when we got there, we had no weapons,
yeah.
and they told us about getting mortared there all the time, and possible, you know, gooks getting in there and so forth. And I always had that weird feeling, like, well, why don't they give me something to defend myself with? But they never
No
would.
ammo then.
And then even when they put us on the truck to take us to Cu Chi, we were on that truck with nothing but our duffel bag. And then there was a guy, remember the 50 or the machine gun mounted on the roof on those deuce and a halves?
Oh, absolutely.
And a private, no class, was standing behind that gun, and a driver. And
Exactly.
we took off down that dirt road and out in the middle of nowhere, and all that time I thought to myself, man, what if?
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
you're looking all the time.
What
and what
if?
if, or a mine or something.
When did you leave country? How long? You got there in
Oh.
June and left in.
I left in June. I think they let me leave a couple of days there. June 10th, the best I remember.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Do you remember the feeling that you had when you actually realized that you were standing in line to get on a plane to come home?
It was a feeling of disbelief, basically. You know, the year's up. I actually made it and survived, and I'm going to be getting on that plane in a soft seat, probably get something cold to drink, and I'm going home. But yeah,
But in the back of your mind, were you still thinking, I might still get it? That plane might get shot down, a mortar might come in. I mean, up to the last minute.
until I'm on board and it's actually lifting off
Yes.
and gaining pretty good altitude,
Yeah.
then I thought, really did. I did.
I was
too.
I was the same
Me
way.
too. So that was really exciting to have made it. But then on the other side of the coin, you're looking out the window and you're looking down at the ground in the jungles,
Yep.
and you realize your guys are still down there. That night, some of them are going to be going out on ambush patrol, or they may be in a firefight, and so it was a toss-up. You're happy you made it, and you did your time,
Yep.
but your closest friends in the world are still there on the ground,
Yeah.
and
And you know, so many of the guys that you served with never made it that long.
I know.
I mean, more than didn't make it than did. I mean, one way or the other, wounded or KIA.
Okay. Oh, yeah, a good half.
Yep.
Good half
Yep.
of us were, like you said, wounded or killed in action, and constant replacements. I mean, it was.
Yep. So tell me what it was like to hear your name called in the bleachers, and they said, "You're going to Charlie Company, 2nd of the 27th." What was it like after that? Did they send you over and say, "Get on a deuce and a half," and they're going to take you to Cu Chi? Or tell me what you remember about that.
Not much. Just that, I was going to the 25th Infantry and Charlie Company and on the bus. So, and then when I got to Cu Chi, or not on the bus, on the deuce and a half, and then I get to Cu Chi and check in with the 2nd Platoon. And
Did the company clerk come out and
oh yeah,
take your orders? And
yeah, took the orders, set me down, wrote all my information.
was that Teach at that time? Was that Teach?
No, that was Hunt, Gary Hunt.
Okay.
Was there at that time. Nice guy.
Yep.
Really nice. He was a good company clerk. I got to hand it to him. I mean, he took care of everything. If you were scheduled to go on an R&R or medals, whatever, he took care of everything, and he's really efficient at it. So, nice kid. We didn't see him very often, but he was good.
Yep. And then you had to go to the supply room and get your gear.
Get all my gear, get my rifle, actually get some ammunition and everything, and they pointed out the hooch I'd be staying in. And I remember thinking, well, those are pretty dilapidated buildings, and that's where I'm going to be staying. Little did I know that was like like the Hilton or the Broadmoor Hotel from where I was going from there. That was just, it was too.
And half of the wall was screen.
Yeah, the upper
From
half.
about 4 foot up,
Yeah.
it was all screen.
Yep. And the bottom half was sandbagged.
Yeah.
And also, yep. And there was nothing but cots, army cots.
Yep. But yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty good stuff. We found out later.
Yeah, it was. It was like, that was heaven sent. That was luxury for where we were going and
Yep.
what was going to happen. But
So tell me what it was like when they said we're going to send you to a place called Crockett. Was it Crockett that you went out to?
I believe it was.
Yeah, and that's where you met the platoon.
Yeah, it was just.
Tell
Well,
me-
no, I met the platoon in Cu-Chi.
They had come in.
They had suffered a severe loss.
Yep.
I go to the hooch I'm assigned, and I walk in, and there's one person in there, and he's sitting there on a cot, legs crossed, and like this, like big eyes, like Buddha. And I walk in, and I'm looking for a place, and it turned out it was Little Willie. He was there by himself, and I thought he'd been drinking, but I think it was, now later on I realized it's a little more than that. And he's going, "Who are you?" And I told him who I was, and I was assigned there. And he goes, "Where are you from?" And I go, "I'm from Indiana, a small town." He says, "So you're basically a country boy out and around the woods and everything?" I go, "Yeah, I spent a lot of time in the woods, hunting different things." He goes, "You're going to be our new point man." And, I don't know. I'm there, and I don't know what's happened.
By the way, they didn't teach us how to be point men in AIT.
No, that wasn't a thing there either. But I asked Willie, I go, "Well, what, your point man went home?" He says, "Dead. They're all dead." He said, "The whole point team was wiped out, ambushed and wiped out." He goes, "That's why we're here waiting for replacements. And then we're headed back to the field. And you're kind of a country boy, you'll fit right in." So,
What were you thinking at that point?
oh shit.
Yeah.
Kind of oh shit thing, because I don't, I'm just going with the flow. What they want me to do, I'll do, but I don't know what everybody does. So this is a whole step as a learning experience. So
Now, when I met you, you were carrying an M79. Did you do that? Were you walking point it with a 79, or how did you get the 79?
it was just, they needed somebody to carry it. I was a new guy. I couldn't believe, I walked point for about a week with Willie, and he kind of broke me in, but I still couldn't believe I'm going to be walking point, which turned out I liked it. I was good at it, I liked it, but I couldn't believe I was going to be walking point with a single shot M79. That there were all kinds of different rounds for it, high explosive, but I always carried the canister buckshot rounds. But I got one shot, and then you got to break it open and load it up, and I was just couldn't believe I was up walking point with an 80-pound backpack of ammo and a single shot weapon. But
Yeah, but don't forget what you were packing on your hip.
oh, thank God, they gave me, I was so proud of it. They gave me a 45. I was the only person there that had a pistol on his hip, a 45. So it was a fine weapon.
Yeah, right. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that 45?
This 45, I think, came from World War I, maybe. It was, you could hold it and shake it, and it rattled like, marbles in a can. There was no rifling in the barrel, basically.
Yep.
And it was the biggest piece of shit I had ever seen. I mean, it was more accurate if you threw it than shot it. I mean, because you can shoot it, and it's going to hit here, because we got free fires, and you say, okay, I'll aim it, and it hit over here. You never
Or
knew.
up or down?
Yeah,
or-
down. It was gonna. I couldn't wait to get rid of that. I mean, what a piece of junk. But
You were probably waiting for some doped new guy to walk in the platoon and tell him what a great find it would be if he had that on his hip, and how all those different kind of rounds in that rucksack would almost make him famous.
well, no, I didn't really think about a lot. I mean, I wanted to get rid of this whole outfit for what I was doing, but I didn't think about it a whole lot. But we had our own Rambo over there before Rambo came out.
That's right.
Ed Rambo, what a character he was. Amazing. You never saw him in the base camp without a cigarette and a beer.
Yep.
Now, when we went out to the wire, it was a total. But anyway, he and I are sitting on a bunker when the 3 new guys come in. And, Ed turns to me, he says, "You've been wanting to get rid of that M79 and 45. And I go, "Oh, absolutely." He goes, "Here come 3 dummies." He says, "The biggest one looks the dumbest." He goes, "Swap weapons." He's got a beautiful M16. So it's like, maybe it'll work. He might be dumb enough. So it's like, "Hey, new guy, come here." And over comes my friend, Big John. So let me see that M16. I look at it, man, it's clean. It's like, it just came out of the armory. I says, "I'm going to keep this M16. We're going to make you important because we have this M79. It shoots buckshot, it shoots tear gas, it shoots flares, but more than
Grappling
that,
hook.
it shoots high explosives. This is the ultimate weapon we depend on. I mean, it can just bring pee on the enemy and everything. And this is going to be your new weapon to carry. And here's a rucksack. It's got full of ammo and everything." I remember you were kind of questionable. And I said, "And you get to carry this 45
That was
for
the
if we
closer.
get in an up close and personal firefight."
That was the closer.
It was. Your eyes kind of got big. I mean, you didn't know how badly you'd been had.
No, I didn't.
You got
I
that.
didn't.
I mean, you're putting that 45 on right away.
And the thing is I didn't realize the importance of that day until like 3 months later, when I wanted to get rid of it, and I saw Moose walking towards with a couple of new guys, and I used the same pitch exactly that you used on me, and he looked at that and he said, "Give it to me. That's for me." And I got I got a brand new M16 out of the deal, and he took that and he walked point with it.
Oh,
He was walking point at that
he
time.
walked point with that.
But
too?
I learned. You taught me a lesson I never forgot.
That chain of events, I'm sure, continued on and had
sure.
been before forever.
Sure,
Because
you bet.
I mean, that rucksack, that ammo was so heavy out there. There
And
were
walking in the rice paddies with it, it
you
was just
sink to your knees. You had to have help getting up and up on point. There wasn't really any help, so I never really sat down. I'd get a stick and put underneath it and kind of lean back to take the weight off my shoulders, but I didn't sit down. I wasn't going to be able to get back up hardly. So
Yep. Who are the guys that when you walked into the platoon, or when they came in, besides Willie, who do you remember being in the platoon at that time?
Sergeant Glover, Smokes, Sergeant Hanna,
Was Ketchum there?
Lee. Yeah, there was Lee Ketchum and dang, can't think of his name. That sucks, and I know it very well. He was part of that group. Oh, he's going on our fishing trips. He retired from the military.
Oh, Dasher.
Yeah, Dasher, Larry
Larry
Dasher.
Dasher.
He was there. I mean, that was quite a crew,
Yep.
and I'm sure glad they were there. I learned a lot from them, and they'd been there a while. So,
Yep.
That's the ones I remember, basically.
I don't think you guys had a lieutenant, did you? Wasn't
No.
Glover running the platoon?
Glover ran everything. He was.
And when I walked into the platoon in August, Glover was running it, and I think I'd been there a week, and then Cy Krevling came, Lieutenant Krevling. He came in and became our lieutenant, and he was an engineer, and his sole purpose in volunteering to go on a line company is he wanted to get a CIB.
That sounds about right.
And so he was with us, and of course he was smart enough. Immediately when he got there, he went to Glover and said, "You're still running things."
Yeah.
I mean, he was real savvy, because he'd never had any even infantry training. And you know, Cy told me when we were at a reunion one time, he goes, "My biggest fear is that I was going to get somebody hurt."
Yeah.
And he said Glover was he knew so much. He said, "I just told Glover, teach me what you can, and I'll learn as quickly as I can," and so forth. But now the kicker is when he got ready to leave, and they were going to make him executive officer, he went back and he went to Hunt and said, "Did you put me in for my CIB?" Because we'd been in several firefights.
Right.
And Hunt looked it up and he goes, "Well, you're not eligible for one." And he goes, "Oh no, I've got all these things written down, the dates and times and the firefights and everything."
Right.
He goes, "Sir, you don't have an infantry MOS."
I never thought of that.
Did you ever hear that story?
No, I
And
didn't.
Cy just thought to himself, here I volunteered to go into this monstrous suicide deal for a CIB, and I wasn't even eligible to get one.
Oh,
And so that was quite a story in and of
yeah,
itself.
that's kind of a new. I didn't know that he didn't get
Yep.
one. I just assumed he had one.
Yep. And so now us new guys are starting to fill in the blanks.
Right.
And I remember Sugar Bear Taylor, he came in, and Buck Buchanan came in, and gosh,
There were so many.
well, there was so many because you guys had been beat up so bad. There wasn't very many of you left, and then that was a crew. Then that, and I remember how much we relied on you guys, the old guys, and yet the old guys didn't really want to have a lot to do with us. And the thinking, I think, is that new guys are going to get me killed, if because they don't know what they're doing and so forth. But you did take someone under your wing. You did personally guide and direct one soldier.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. We won't talk about him.
Okay,
His kids might see this
that's
someday.
true. Yeah, that's
So,
true. Okay,
But yeah, I did. I know who you're talking about, and we tried to help him and protect him, but he just wasn't meant to be in the field.
no, that's a fact.
I mean, he was going to get himself hurt or somebody else, and so I'd talk. Actually, Glover approached me asking about it.
That's a fact. No, that's exactly what I heard too.
Yeah, and he asked me about it and what I thought, and we both agreed, and he got a job in the rear.
Right.
And it,
Worked out best for everybody, actually.
yeah, and it wasn't nothing against him. I mean, some people are meant and some can adapt, and
Yeah.
others, I mean, he couldn't help it.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't something he was consciously doing.
No.
It was just a reaction to
Yeah.
his body,
Yep.
and he'd kind of freeze, and it was a problem. So,
Do you remember running ambush patrols out of Crockett at a place called the Laterite Pit?
barely.
It wasn't very far from Crockett.
Yeah, I
and it was
remember
that
the
rough,
pits.
and it was those horrible laterite. Man, it was rough. I mean, just to walk on it was really.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then they'd set us up in that light laterite stuff. The amazing thing about that is it was just not very far from a village, and that was my first ambush patrol, by the way. The
Really?
laterite pits, and. Remember how Glover always used to get us together before we'd leave the wire?
Absolutely.
And he'd have a little powwow, a little get together. And to the new guys, he said, now, we go out here a lot. And he says, the reason we go out here a lot is because the Viet Cong at that time aren't very smart, and they, we'll pop them, and then a week later we'll go back, and this was kind of a route.
They kept moving through the same
A route.
area.
Yeah, they just would go basically the same trails, and he said, so be expecting to shoot. In other words, this isn't just a little joy walk we're going on. We're going to do some shooting probably.
Right.
And since it was my very first ambush patrol, I thought, wow, this maybe is really it. And so I remember that. And sure enough, that night, there was 2 or 3 of them that walked right in front of us, and they opened up the ambush, and that was a real awakening experience. The very first time you ever heard everybody open up. I mean, it is just an absolute insane.
Oh, it is, and then it was a war. I mean, that's the way it was, and that's the way it had to be. But it's generally the first time you'd actually kill someone.
Yeah.
Which is, there's that singing group called the Boys to Men. I've always said, in our platoon there, we were the original Boys to Men.
That's true.
You grew up really
sometimes
fast.
overnight.
Yeah, exactly. In a day or two. I mean,
I've tried to explain to people that feeling, when you actually know. There were a lot of times we'd shoot into the hedgerows, and you didn't know if you killed anybody or not, but when you actually knew you did, I've tried to explain to people the hollow feeling, and you just question everything.
Yeah,
about your life and your morals and everything. I mean, it all comes together, and you kind of get sick.
You do. I mean, I remember the first one, and like you said, usually firefight, you're shooting at muzzle flashes in areas where you can see the leaves moving, but when they're right there, and you take a life, they drop, and all. There's no explaining that. It's just.
Yep, I've tried, and people just don't. They look at you like they just don't get it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know how to explain it to them. It's just.
Remember Tommy Kemp?
Oh, sure, Tommy.
When did Tommy come in?
I don't know. You're a steel trap. Me, I have a hard time. He came in after us, though, but I couldn't tell you what month or anything.
Yeah, and then there was a time I think I'd been there at least a couple of months, and we were doing a lot of day riffs, we were working all the time. They either had us out in the day or out at night every day. Something. And Glover came up to us one day and he said, "We're going to do something different. This isn't like anything we've ever done before, so I need to really tell you guys what's up." And he said, "We're going to an undisclosed location, and you guys are going to have to leave your dog tags here and any identification here and so forth. And by the way, if we're captured, you're on your own." And everybody's looking at each other like, what in the world is he talking about? And do you remember that day that they flew us up there to the Cambodian border, and we were going into Cambodia?
To meet the Green Beret?
Yes. Tell us about that day.
November 23rd, 1960. Yeah, I remember that day pretty well. So, yeah, we're going to meet some Green Beret. Actually, we didn't know we were going in Cambodia.
Yeah, exactly.
We just knew we were going to meet a Green Beret and these mercenaries, and it seemed like we were supposed to be searching for a hospital complex. So we get in as a cold LZ. We didn't receive any fire, and bail off, spread out, and then we kind of get together, and Glover says, the Green Beret aren't here yet. It'll be a little bit, let's do a sweep of the area. And so the platoon went out, and I was on point. Tommy Kemp was up there with me, and Dave Brogan. And, Tommy carried the radio for me. And we're just doing a sweep of the area and checking a trail, and all of a sudden I see this bunker up off to the left. And it was really an unusual bunker. I should have known something was wrong right then and there, because there was fresh dirt around it, and you never see. I mean, I think they ate the dirt. You never found dirt. There's this bunker. So I had the platoon hold up. I don't know if anybody's in it. I think I spotted it before anybody in there would have spotted me or us. And so Tommy and Brogan are covering me, and I crawled up the hill to my left through the bamboo and low crawled over to the right to where I got close enough to the bunker. I couldn't hear anybody, but still, I pulled a pin on a grenade, got close enough, and I pitched it in the opening, and then I jumped up. Boy, did I make a stupid mistake. Now, I've been like 6 months on point. I know what to do. But I jump up, and I started backing up. I'm on full auto. I'm thinking possibly somebody's going to come running up. And I'm backing up, and my mistake was I didn't back up the same path I just low crawled up. And I didn't see the tripwires they had set out there, but I hit a tripwire and set off, I don't know what kind of explosive device. Initially, I thought maybe they threw the hand grenade back out.
Oh, yeah.
And I missed it. But that's not, it turned out I hit a tripwire. I just remember flying through the air in dirt and mud in like slow motion till I started down, and then it got really fast. I remember hitting the ground, but it knocked me out for a little bit. So, but I was extremely lucky. It was either they hadn't set it up right or it was set to blow forward. I just took some shrapnel in my legs, and I don't know how I got a piece up here, but when I came to, you know, Doc Turner cut my pants open and working on me, and a lot of blood, and I was really scared at first. I couldn't see, but it was just mud, and then it was blood. And I can see Doc talking, but I can't hear him because it was just a concussion thing, I believe. I mean, if I get closer, I could hear him. He says, "You're all going to be all right." And, you know, Tommy, Kip, and Brogan both, because of me as my screw up, they both took some shrapnel. Nothing bad, but Tommy took one in his foot. But you know, later on I apologized to Tommy for that. I felt so bad. I said, when you had found me and we found him, it was the first time I got to tell him that I felt. He said, "Oh, Big Joe, it's okay. You got me offline for a while."
Exactly.
He was so, but
exactly.
That was interesting too, because they had, you know, they kind of half carried me back to the opening, and Tommy, where they could land a chopper, and they said the medevac chopper's like going to be 30 minutes out, but then this other voice comes over the radio, and it's the pilot of the chopper with the Green Beret and mercenaries, and he goes, "I'm 5 minutes out. I'll drop the mercenaries and I'll take your wounded." So we're getting out of there quicker. And then the chopper sets down, and the mercenaries with this one with all these
mountain yards,
and the Green Beret with all this black stuff, and he's bail off, and they come running over, and they're helping us, and the Green Beret is actually under one arm, kind of helping carry me over to the helicopter. And it's just, I hear this, I can't hear very well, but I hear this really familiar, raspy voice from the Green Beret. And he goes, "Joe Waskom, is that you?" And through all the blackness, I get to looking really close. I go, "Eugene Barry?" Now, Eugene, 1,700 people. He was like 2 grades ahead of me back in this little town in Indiana, had lived like 5 doors down from me. And he had gone into the service years ahead of me. But here he is on the other side of the world carrying me.
Unbelievable.
And putting me on the chopper. And that was just an unbelievable thing. The last thing he said to me is, "When you write home, tell your mom I said hi." So, that was.
And he was the one that actually took us into Cambodia, of course.
That's what I heard later.
With his mercenaries, and that was an experience of itself.
You know, when
what he told us before we went in there is he goes, you guys don't have to do anything. He was talking to us.
Yeah.
He goes, my guys, my mountain yards are going to do everything. So all you guys have to do is just stay alert and so forth. And he explained to us what we were going to do. And they told us we were looking for a underground hospital.
Really?
And I didn't find out until one of the Branson reunions when Glover, we were talking about that whole subject. And he told us that it was actually a Blackbird.
Down reconnaissance plane, wasn't it? Yeah.
Reconnaissance plane. But those mountain yards, I'll never forget the first night we were in there. They set up these mosquito nets for us.
Really?
That's the first time I ever slept under a mosquito net and didn't get eaten alive by mosquitoes.
Wow.
And he said, none of you guys have to do guard duty. He goes, we'll have booby traps, 360, and I'll have 2 mountain yards on guard at all times. So he says, you guys just rest easy. And you know, I thought, how's that possible, to rest easy? Right here you've got these little mountain yard people that are looking at you kind of sideways anyway.
Yeah.
And not, you know.
Yeah, it would make you nervous, wouldn't it?
And then that very first night out there, I remember Russ Bruns and I were sleeping right next to each other, and all of a sudden there's, boom, a one round go off. And of course everybody jumps up and everything, and not another word. Nobody talking, nobody doing nothing. And he was an E7, I believe.
Yeah, he was.
And he just went around and said, okay, just go back to sleep, everything's fine. And the next morning he took us over there. We set up next to a little tiny canal, and he did this, he knew what was going on. He did this on purpose. There was a papasan that had a little tiny sampan, and he had a 51 caliber machine gun on it.
Oh, wow.
And he would go down, and they knew about it. And they knew this guy. He'd go down, and he'd only go at night. So basically, he set up a couple of his mountain yards on the little canal and blew him away that night. And we got to see him. And here's the machine gun, and he goes, this is just a little side trip. He goes, we've been having trouble with this guy.
Yeah.
And so we thought we would come over here and take care of that, tonight.
Yeah. Well, I knew if you were going to be around Nigel, he was a wild and crazy guy back home. I mean, somebody wanted to fight, he was right in there. So I think one of the guys told me later on when I got back that he and the mountain yards and the platoon are moving, and they came across an area that had tripwire booby traps. And he had his mountain yards and him and the rest of them had everybody hold up. They took off their boots and everything and rolled their pants up to their knees. And they got on the line and ran across that opening area. And there's little timers on it, but apparently right behind them stuff was just blowing up and everything. They took their boots off so nothing gets stuck in their shoelaces or catch to their pant lace. But I can't remember, maybe it was Naso. One of the boys was telling me that.
Wow.
I go, that's just crazy. Unbelievable.
I'm going to take us back to when I first met you. And I'll never forget one of the things that really struck me is that you had a monkey. Tell us about your monkey.
That would be Sheila. Yeah, I can't remember. We were back in Coochie for a stand down or something, and somebody later, his name was Jim Marshall, who I know very well right now. And he had this monkey, and I was checking out the monkey, and he goes, "Would you like her?" And I go, "Well, sure." And he said, "So here you go. Her name's Sheila. This is your monkey." And that was the craziest monkey, but it was all meant to be. Nobody would remember me if it wasn't for the monkey, because guys go, "Oh, you're the guy with the monkey." They don't know my name, but they knew the monkey and Sheila. And so, yeah, she
And you almost earned enough money to retire on that monkey, didn't you?
I made pretty good money off that monkey. We didn't make a lot of money over there, but through the PX, I could get the supply guys. I had a Polaroid camera, and I could get the guys from supply, whenever they sent stuff up, send them money, and they would go buy me packs of Polaroid. And our guys, I was pretty cheap, like $1. Take your picture and send it home
Yeah.
to Mama with the monkey on
Yeah.
it. Everybody want. But the other platoons, it was $5.
Yep.
I mean, we've got nowhere to spend money over there.
Yep.
I could buy 2 packs of film for $5.
Sure.
So I made a lot of money off that poor monkey.
And everybody had a picture with Sheila, I think.
Yes, and everybody, I can't think, especially our platoon, a single man that Sheila didn't bite. She bit everybody.
And you never knew when.
No,
She'd be sitting on your shoulder, just calm as can be, and then all of a sudden bite you.
bite you. Especially, you know, all the other guys, she'd sit on her shoulder, I'd take the picture, I go, okay, just, you know, stand still and I'll get her and I could do this. And she'd hop over, but they invariably would reach up to get her and she bit everybody. There was nobody that I can recall she didn't bite. But yeah, she was a pretty cool monkey. And I don't know what it, you know, she hated Vietnamese. Hated Vietnamese. I don't know what it, well, they ate them, I guess. But, you know, I'd keep her around my bunker wherever we were at. I never took her to the field out when we went out to war, but if she started acting up in the evening, you better be ready, because something's about, there's some, you know, whether it's VC or what, they're close, because she could smell them, I guess. But I mean, if she started acting up and jumping up and down, you better be prepared. You know, they're there.
So, Joe, did you ever get an R&R while you were there?
I did, yeah. But
Where did you go?
Da Nang. Most of the guys would go out of country to Taiwan or Japan or something.
Hong Kong.
But for me, my brother was up in Da Nang, so I didn't go out of country. I just took my time and went up there and stayed with him for a little while. Pretty interesting. I mean, it's like a big city, and Tom was a lineman, but not an infantry. He worked on high wires and power wires and things, and so, you know, we had a nice hooch. God, I never ate so good, and then he actually took me over, got a Jeep, and one day we went over and spent the whole day swimming in the China Sea. You know, and that was
Interesting.
It was. I mean, it was just amazing. So anyway, I spent my time with him, and he did all right too, because when I went, I had this, well, you know, I had this thing about collecting AK-47s. When we'd be in a firefight, I'd always collect them. I had bunches. So I went up to see him, and killed me. I was carrying like 2 duffel bags full of AK-47s, and I took them up and give them to Tom, and I never got anything out of them, but the guys on the airstrip there, the Air Force, they figure they can get this stuff home. So he'd go over there and trade it. He had the most outstanding stereo system, speakers, reel-to-reels, cameras, just all this really nice stuff that he'd trade them off for.
Yep. You know, and I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but there's another couple of incidences that I remember that are noteworthy. Do you remember when we got ambushed by Delta Company?
Yes, I do. Yeah, they were way off. They'd gone out a little ahead of us when it got dark, and they were supposed to be over, I can't remember directions, south, setting up an ambush, and we were going basically to the north. And you know, I was on point up there, and we're crossing a rice paddy area when suddenly, you know, they tell me that Delta has got some gooks spotted, and they're getting ready to pop an ambush, so we should hurry up and get where we're going and get set up in case when they pop their ambush, the VC, I'm just probably VC rather than MVA, might come running by us or where we were at, but we needed to, and we started moving, and Delta Company opened up their ambush on us. They were completely, their lieutenant couldn't read a map. They were completely way off from where they should have been, they'd set up, and the movement they seen was us moving to an ambush, and thank God they couldn't shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember there's water, and that's why we were walking the berm, which is a no-no, but we're walking the berm, and we all bailed off into the rice paddy up to our necks in water and all this. And somewhere along the line, somebody realized what was going on and got Delta to ceasefire and everything. I think it was Rambo. Somebody over there yelled, "Are you guys all right?" And I'll clean it up. Rambo says, "Stick up your effing head and I'll show you if we're all right." We were pissed. You know, we didn't get hurt. I think that lieutenant got transferred after that, if I'm...
No, he was gone.
Gone.
Yep.
Yeah, because that was just... Oh, yeah, I do remember that, though.
Yep. And so after your war was over and you got on the Freedom Bird, you came home, what did you do when you got home?
What did I do? I was just so happy to be home and sleep in a bed and everything. I visited with my mother picked me up at the airport and you know, visited with some of my high school friends, movies. You know, no place to spend our money over there. I'd saved a little bit, not enough, but Chevrolet dealership, and I bought a brand new 69 Chevelle Super Sport. They had to open up the showroom to get it out, and you know, basically that's what I did. Family came and we had some dinners, and you know, I'm thinking back on it, never ever talked about Vietnam. It was never brought up. I never brought it up. They never asked it. And I didn't think about it then, but now I think how strange, you know, I didn't, and nobody else asked how was it, what happened. It was just like it never happened, you know.
So then did you have 6 months left to do in the Army? And if so, where did you do that?
Oh, yeah, I did. I had 6 months left to go after my leave, and then my orders were for Fort Carson. You know, they give you a wish list where you would like to go, and you put on there where you would like to go.
First choice, second choice.
Yeah, and then they figure, okay, these choices, what's the farthest spot away from those? And that's where, so my orders were Fort Carson, Colorado. And I remember thinking, this is going to be like the Old West shows. It's going to be a post out in the middle of the desert, miles and miles and miles from anything. I just so remember thinking about that.
So what did you do the last 6 months?
Well, you know, I came out, I still military in here, I guess. I got to Colorado Springs, which is where we're at now. I'm back here. I went back to Indiana for about a year. It wasn't the same, and I've been back here in Colorado ever since. Actually, Fort Carson's about 20 miles over the hill there.
Okay.
And so I remember it's still there. I see it once in a while. They haven't tore it down. It was a gas station I pulled in and used the restroom and put on my Army greens.
Yep.
And I reported to Fort Carson, and can't remember a lot of that. It was the 10th Infantry, and you know, they made me a platoon sergeant there. I don't know, to this day, I don't know where these guys were from. They'd never been overseas. They'd never been to Vietnam. I had a platoon of misfits, to be real crazy. You know, I'd have to take them out and march them, and we'd clean up the area, this and that. And it was a mech unit too. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
We had to go out and play war games and do this and that. And this, you know, I was a track commander on base. The minute we got outside, it was swap. I want to drive this thing.
Sure.
So
yeah.
What a hoot. Those tracks are pretty awesome. So I got to drive the tracks and everything. And I'll tell you another story. I told you here a while back I ran into Top, my sergeant from Fort Carson. Amazing little guy, but we went out on a little war game with this brand new 90-day wonder lieutenant. And we go out and we're playing our war games and we come up. And of course, we're doing no ammo again, like you mentioned. And he wants us to take this hill, charge this hill. So, okay, whatever, we'll do it. Up and until the point he wants us to yell bang, bang, going up this effing hill. Now, the other guys, they were okay with this. Like it's, they'd never been, and I thought, you know, I will go up that hill, but I am not yelling bang, bang. All he lit into me, I was go back, sat in his Jeep. When we got back to base, I was supposed to report to the captain's office, and he was going to file an Article 15 for disobeying orders. And I didn't really give a shit. I didn't care, you know. There was no way I was going to do that. So I go into the orderly room, and Top's there, and he's always, Sergeant Waskom, what are you doing in my orderly room? So I proceeded to tell him what happened, and I'd been ordered over here, and he was going to... He just kind of looked at me. He said, Sergeant Waskom, you just go on back to your barracks. If I need you, I will call you. So I go back to my barracks, and nothing that night, nothing. And get up the next morning, and I ran into the company clerk, and I go, what's going on? I was supposed to go over. He says, oh my God. He's laughing. He goes, when that lieutenant came in there, Top straddled him up one side and down the other, and explained to him that he had never been out of the States. He was a 90-day wonder, and that also Sergeant Waskom had served a year in Vietnam combat, and how dare him want you to yell bang, bang going. And like it happened before, that lieutenant was gone. Yep. The captain wasn't happy about that either. Yep. And,
so hey. After you got out of the Army, period, then what career did you choose, or what did you do after you were in the Army?
You know, I went back to Odin, and I worked on a naval ammunition depot, the job I'd had before, and things weren't the same, so I decided I like Colorado, where I came. So I came back to the Springs. Initially, I'd been an electronic technician, so I got a job at Hewlett-Packard in their QE, Quality Evaluation Department. And I did that for about 6 months, but extremely boring. I'm inside. And I saw in the paper where the Sheriff's Department was hiring dispatchers, so I went over and applied and everything, and the guys interviewing me said, you do realize if you get this job, you're going to have to get a haircut. Because it was a different color, and it was much thicker, but I said, I understand that, but I wasn't taking a chance if I didn't get the job. It'd take me a while to grow this back. So they go, well, you've got the job. So I went and got a haircut, and I was a dispatcher for the Sheriff's Department 3 years. And then the sheriff did me a favor, because now I know the area I want to go to patrol, and his policy was, when you hire into something, that's where you stay. So the CSPD had an opening through the Springs Police Department for patrolmen, and I tested for that and got right in, and did that for 31 years. I retired in 2005, and I'm glad I'm gone the way things are changing. So.
You were a motorcycle cop.
Yeah, I did half my time in patrol. I never tested for sergeant or anything like that, because I'd had my share of responsibility and stuff, and I didn't want to be inside. I'm an outside person, so I did my patrol car thing for years and years of taking calls, and then they started a motorcycle unit in '87, and I applied for that, did well, got in there, and I spent my last 17 years on the motor unit, which is why I'm kind of wrinkled and got crevices and this and that because I was out in the hot and the cold. There were a few days. If there was no snow actually on the road itself, we rode and everything. And you just drove out here. So can you imagine the winter? There's no snow on the road, but it's cold. We kept our bikes at home at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm on that Harley leaving here and headed. There were times I pulled over just to get out of the wind for a minute. But anyway, I did that. It was a good job. I was instructor for the unit, and we started out with 7, and when I left, we had 30 motor officers.
Wow.
So it was pretty good. We did. It was a good job, mainly traffic enforcement. Anybody needed cover, our guys on motorcycles could get through traffic. We could get to them quickly, and Springs is a big VIP area. We had Reagan, Clinton, all Bushes, and come through here, and we do their escorts and their security. So it was an interesting job.
Boy, I bet it was.
It was. We just lost the most amazing lady, Barbara Bush.
Yeah.
She was, I know Tim's running out of time, but quick, she was amazing. And we're taking them back to the Air Force One, and George's doing these press conferences, so Barbara's waiting over here. So she was just like my mother. She's so down to, I go over and I start talking to her a little bit and just visiting with her, how she doing, and we're just at, and my Sergeant Sapp, he was a black sergeant, big guy, and he sees me, so here he comes, he wants to visit, and he starts talking to Mrs. Bush, and this is how she was, cracks me up. She goes, "Young man, would you take those sunglasses off? I like to see people's eyes when I'm talking to them." He's like, "Yes, ma'am," and off comes. And so he's talking, and I'm watching her again. She's, like I say, she's looking at him and doing this while he's talking. And Bob always wore these 2 little dinky gold chains.
Oh, yeah.
And she looks at him and she goes, "Is that a Mr. T starter set or what?"
Oh, no.
This is the First Lady. That's just how she was. She was hilarious in her own way. But okay, anyway, I'm done.
That's awesome. So, Joe, we're coming towards the end of the interview here. As you know, this is going to be on the internet we have a commitment from a guy that it's going to be up for 100 years.
Oh, wow.
And which means that your family, your sons, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, I don't know how many generations or 100 years, but it's going to go out there for a while. What I'd like you to do is just look into the camera and tell your family or your grandchildren to be, years and years later, any kind of thoughts that you have about a path that you'd like to see them take, or some kind of we're living in kind of a tough world right now, and you and I both went through a pretty bad part of that that time, and just patriotism, whatever you want to talk about, just tell those young folks that are going to be watching this years and years later.
Oh, wow, that's rough. Things are happening. We don't know what all's going to happen. There's Iraq, and Korea looks like it's settling down, but I just hope all my kids, grandkids, friends, everybody does well. I hope they never, ever have to go to war and see what John and I, it's not a good thing. So I just hope they do well and never have to go to war, and I don't care. I'll spend that, a lot of people, just like right now with our presidency, a lot of them don't like the president we got, but, and in the future you may not. But if you got one, at least give him a chance and support him and support our government. And I just hope they never have to go to war. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I've got another question for you. What is your definition of a hero?
John Quintrell.
Seriously, what's the definition of a hero?
Oh, and seriously, I don't know what you. It's just a person that does his job and takes care of business, and does what he has to. Everybody in our platoon was a hero.
You know, I've always said, you know, I speak at high schools, and some kid will always say, you know, do you consider yourself a hero? And I always have the same response. No, I wasn't a hero, but I served with a bunch of them.
I walked with a bunch of them.
I served with a bunch of them.
I mean, it's, and then, you know, I know we're running out of time, but I told you I had a small high school class. And we had our 50th reunion. I spent 31 years on CSPD. I worked with a lot of guys, but it's a year, some of them only 6 months. The guys I was with in Vietnam, who I'm the very closest with, there's no comparison, because every one of those guys, and I know they all did, were committed to protecting each other, even if it cost them their lives.
Yep.
And we've seen that happen,
Yep.
where guys were stuck out there wounded and with other guys died trying to get to them. But we never left anybody behind. And if they were out there, you know, Jim Marshall, and I can't remember his buddy's name, they had gone out trying to pull back the point team, and his buddy was killed trying to get to him, and Jim was pinned down. I think it was Glover finally got to the point team where one was still alive. But where guys depend on each other, and, you know, I was committed to dying for you, and I know it was vice versa.
Yeah.
So there's no way of explaining that closeness, but you guys are my heroes, all of them. So.
Well, Joe, I just want to thank you, and you know, you and I go back so far.
We do. I'm the first man you ever slept with.
That bless your heart. But you know, I just want to finish this interview by telling you that you know, back in Vietnam and here today, you're one of the finest men that I ever had the pleasure of serving with.
Even after the 45?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You know, but you know, one thing about you, Joe, is you were always there, and you never weren't there for me, and I just want to thank you so much for that.
I'll always be there for you, my friend, no matter what. So.
Okay.
Okay.